Thank you, Cheryl, for a stirring and powerful speech. Thank you, speakers and medalists, for the inspiration you bring us all. Thank you, Barnard faculty and staff, for everything you do every day and every year. And thank you, parents and friends, for having lent us these wonderful young women for 4 years of their lives. We have loved having them on campus, and we will miss them all. We weren't supposed to be graduating in a gym. In fact, we went through a rather massive process to get out of the gym. We scoured the area for other possible sites. We convened in good Barnard fashion a wonderful committee of students. We hired architects and planners to find the best setup for the greatest number of guests. And then we settled on Grant's tomb, which I would like to tell you is a glorious spot. It is green and leafy and urban. It's wheelchair accessible. It celebrates the extraordinary, albeit complicated, history of strife and civil rights. And mostly, as several of our Barnard students pointed out, it was just so Barnard. So we negotiated for 10 months to get this site. We negotiated with the National Park Service, with the City of New York, with the Department of Parks and Recreation, with Riverside Park, and with the New York Police Department. I would like to thank all of them for their hard work and good cheer. They are there right now watching an awful lot of wet and empty chairs. On our side, meanwhile, I do want to point out 3 people who just did Herculean work to make this day happen. Joanne Kwong, who handled all of our negotiations and is currently in labor. Like real labor. Lillian Appel, who handled an amazing amount of logistics. And then at 8 o'clock this morning, changed all of them. And Diana Panetti, who arranged for not only 1, but 2 complete security details. Diana. And then after all this work, it rained. Not just a nice, misty spring rain, but a torrential downpour. 1 to 2 inches of rain were predicted as of this morning, according to weather.gov, to which I and the entire senior staff have recently become addicted, with threat of thunderstorms and severe flooding. We held out over the weekend for a miracle. As I mentioned, we set up all the chairs at Grant's tomb yesterday, and just in case, we didn't make the call until 8 a.m. this morning. But it rained, and so we're here. I am sorry you're graduating in a gym. It would have been nicer at the memorial, in the sunshine, overlooking the Hudson River. I urge you all to go there. The chairs, as I've mentioned, are set up. Take a photo, visit the site. It's actually a wonderful site. But as I was gnashing my teeth and tearing my hair out over the weekend, I happened to talk to one of the wonderful ladies who works in our facilities department, Marina, and I was telling her my tale of woe. And she said, yeah, it's too bad. She said, but you know what? I think the grandparents will be happier because they'll be dry. More importantly, she said, all the students will be so happy. She said, I know them. They work so hard here. They work so late. They love their professors so much. She said, it's their day, and it doesn't matter where it takes place. And then she got a little bit more wistful, and she said, I wish I had moved to this country earlier in my life, so I would have had a chance to be educated at a place like Barnard, to learn what our students learned, and to celebrate what they'll be celebrating. It was a powerful message to me, and it's one we clearly shouldn't lose sight of amongst all the pomp and chaos of today. Graduation is a big deal. It isn't an event, really, even though we dress it up and play ceremonial music and wear really silly robes. It is a celebration, obviously, of everything that came before it. It's a celebration of struggling through AP Latin in high school when others were out playing. It's rewriting that essay on Alan Turing for the 6th and then the 7th time. It's winning election to your high school council and losing election to your high school council. It's about the SATs, remember those? And the ACTs and all those darn AP exams. It's a memory of first year when you were struck by how smart everyone else was and how hard you felt you had to work. It's a memory, painful though it may be, of lonely nights and less than perfect grades and cramming in the library and finally finding your own eureka moments and your own sources of creative joy. It's a celebration of all the times you called your parents during the first 2 years to tell them that you really, really were having a good time. And it's of the diminishing calls back home when you really did start to find your voice and your joy and make this your home. I hope you will permit me a very brief personal indulgence. My son is also graduating this week. I will be missing his ceremony tomorrow for the Columbia commencement, but he's here now, and I would like to give him a brief shout out. Daniel, you did good, and we're very proud. The class of 2011 is particularly important to me, since this is the first class of Barnard students I have known since their first year on campus. I didn't start formally until this class were in their sophomore year, but I was lucky enough to meet a handful of students when I was first introduced to Barnard in January of 2009, and I remember them. I remember, for example, one young woman who came up during a reception, smiling and welcoming, and I must confess, giggling pretty badly. That woman was Anna Ziering, who just gave our terrific academic reflection. And then there was another one who said hello only briefly, but then wrote this very intriguing piece in the Columbia Spectator about meeting the president and discovering she was actually a real person. I found this vaguely terrifying, but intriguing nevertheless, and that woman was Rennie Callister, who just delivered greetings from the senior class. If we had gone to Grant's tomb, I planned to talk a bit about General Grant. I am not going to do that since it seems inappropriate here in the gym. But suffice it to say that he was an intriguing man and an important man. He had retired from the Army when the Civil War began, but he signed up anyhow and went on to lead the Union forces to victory, to become commanding general of the United States Army, and finally to become president of the United States. He owned slaves briefly, but then went on to oversee elections in the South, to enforce civil rights law, and to fight against Ku Klux Klan violence. General Grant was not a perfect man, and he certainly was not a perfect president. But at the moments when it mattered most, he seems to have made the right decisions. Not the easy decisions, not the decisions that made him popular or necessarily worked the best, but the decisions that pushed this country through a perilous time and towards a better end. I hope that none of you will ever have to make the kind of choices that General Grant did. But as Sheryl Sandberg said so eloquently just a few minutes earlier, each and every one of you will inevitably face choices of your own, tough, big, complicated choices that will almost certainly feel as weighty when you are making them as Grant's did to him. Indeed, in many ways, you have more choices before you than any women of any generation have ever before enjoyed. You have choices about your career, your ambition, your sexuality, and your reproductive lives. You have choices about where to live and how to live and by what set of values. It's an infinity of choices, really, a dazzling array of everything that's possible. But the time will come, sooner than you think, when you'll have to start choosing among all these beautiful options and realize that opening one particularly inviting door will eventually mean closing another, that pursuing one dream can often mean abandoning another. No one here, not your parents or your professors or your friends, can ever really tell you how to make the choices that matter most, because that power, that truly awesome, terrifying, liberating power, rests only with you. You are the ones who will feel the adrenaline that comes from taking a risk and making it work. You are the ones who will know the pain of a decision that turns out to be wrong. You are the ones who will learn how the most reasonable of choices can sometimes suffocate you, and how the worst ones can sometimes free you to emerge stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. Let me close then by taking this moment to urge you always to make your choices as consciously and as willfully as you can. Stick with AP Latin if it's the right thing for you to do, and drop it if it's not. Try to hold commencement in the park if you think it's the right thing to do, even if the weather report warns otherwise. Pursue your dream of going to medical school or becoming an actor if that's what you want, and then find another path if the first dream fades. So choose wisely as you wander out into that amazing place called the real world. Choose wildly when you can. And most importantly, choose consciously, remembering that having the ability to shape your own lives also gives you an obligation to make those lives matter. I wish you each joy and love and all the luck in the world. Congratulations.